All right, let's go and get started. Thank you for joining me today. Today's topic is residential lot grading made easy. We'll be using CTC tools and auto grader pretty much entirely through this webinar. And my name is Terry Rademan. I'm a senior civil technical specialist residing in Tucson, Arizona. Been in the industry for over 25 years, mostly in the civil and utility industry, utilizing Autodesk and Esri products. Product expertise, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Map 3D, InfoWorks, ArcGIS, also do some programming in Autolist as well, which I really enjoy. So our agenda today is going to touch on basically residential grading and advanced grading for lots, efficient ways that we can grade using auto grader and saving time on task for residential grading. Our primary focus is going to be on residential pads and side lot grading for a residential development. All right, so with our side lot grading, we'll be using auto grader. There's a couple different families that we use for perpendicular grading or side lot grading. So we'll be using perpendicular grading families. We'll look at our side lot swales and how we develop our perpendicular families and side lots. And we'll look at some other types of slopes based on the lots sloping forward or sloping back. And then we'll look at pad grading and using template insertion for our grading family. And basically, template insertion is a feature line polygon that represents our pad that we're going to use to push along our right-of-way or along our pad edge. So what we'll probably end up doing is doing one of these first and then manually, and then we'll go through and do some with AutoGrader. So what I have is a site here that has several lots on it. And what I've done, I did a webinar last month where we used corridors to extract the right-of-way feature line, and we use our feature line, right-of-way feature line for our control for our elevation point. So in this example, I'm just, I have a right-of-way feature line in here that wraps around the site. This is at an elevation, using it at the same slope as across the street here. So thinking that it's a crown roadway and my section is pretty similar all the way across the road. So pretty flat through here, and we have some slopes going through our site. Normally what we would do is we can look at our slopes, and we might want to identify the high side of our lot and develop our pad next to our lot. So one thing we can do is we'll just start looking at some of these elevations, and I'm just going to go ahead and do one manually just to give you a amount of time it takes, and we can do a comparative. So I'm going to place an elevation, spot elevation there. I'm going to go ahead and copy my feature line. This is my pad here, and I'm going to go ahead and move this pad to our location. And I'm just going to align it to right here. Okay. Must have messed that up. Let's try that again. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and copy this spot elevation to the other side as well. Let's see what we have. So my road slopes at 1% from north to south. So my feature line here with elevations is at 1% going down on this side of the site. So I have a setback here. I'm going to use a 30-foot setback. So what I'm going to do is just draw in a polyline here, and then I'll offset it 30 foot back. My feature line to offset here. All right. So I'm going to use for generic purposes, I'm going to go ahead and set my pad at a certain elevation, and I'm just going to do it at a 1 foot different just to make it easy, so we can just kind of move on and look at AutoGrader and some of this other functionality that it has. So I'm going to go and open up my elevation editor and see where we're at. And I'm going to set my elevation for my pad here at 1 foot higher, so 609.56. All right. All right, so now I could add this to the surface and we could move on. And what we probably can do is draw a line, 3D polyline from our corner to our corner of our pad, and move this entire pad and move it along our site here, adding them to our surface as we go. When we do that, the pads are pretty static, right? So if we adjust our feature line here, our elevation, if our road changes, the pad will change. Each and one of these pads are independent. The pad that I've used was this guy here, which is basically sloping at 1%, 1.5% towards our roadway. So we're sloping down towards the roadway, and our site here, we could actually identify this elevation and this elevation, and then continue on to copy our pads along our roadway. Very time consuming, very static, just a time consuming approach. So what we're going to do is look at using AutoGrader to grade out our site and lay our pads down. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and remove this site here, and we're going to just use AutoGrader and see how that works. All right, so introduction on AutoGrader is basically we have different types of grading families that we create. On the top bar here, there's a bunch of good information. There's links to different videos. There's support help, and then we have some options here. With these type of grading families, we can see that I'm using a couple different grading families, and we'll go through generating these grading families and applying them to our drawing. This perpendicular type, if we create a new grading family, the grading families are for parallel grading families. So ponds, anything that has step offsets that you would normally use step offsets to, you can develop parallel grading. And what it does is it makes AutoGrader kind of makes it dynamic. So we're not step offsetting and having independent lines. It's not like AutoGrader connects or makes these dynamic to each other, but what it does is it regenerates the feature lines based on the criteria that's in the grading family. So perpendicular grading family is for our lot lines. and we can set different slopes for our lots. And we have a template insertion, which follows a right of way, and it'll place these pads at different distances. And we'll look at two different approaches to adding these pads. One's going to be using the high side and the direction of the polyline, and the other one is just going to take the midpoint of two of our lot lines, and it's going to use the elevation in the middle and project that pad back. So two primary ones we're going to be using today are our perpendicular grading family and our template insertion. So I have a couple different lots here. They're identified. What we have is basically a feature line for our right of way, and we have a feature line for the back part of our site. So what I did was I took these out of the CAD drawing and using Ncopy, placed them in here, and then generated feature lines out of these parcels. So these are already feature lines, and the back part of the lot is just basically a boundary of our area just as a target. So if I have this elevation set and this the front elevation, the right-of-way elevation, and the back lot elevation set, when I create these feature lines from objects, let's say, one thing you have to be mindful of is our feature line style hierarchy. So if I go to our sites here and we go to site 1, we go to our feature lines, if we right click on it and go to properties, we have our hierarchy here. So right away on the very top, that means it takes priorities. My side lots are below my back lots. So what that means is that when I create a feature line out of my side lots, it's going to take the elevation of the back lot and the front lot to develop the feature line. So hierarchy is very important in when we look at AutoGrader and when you're developing and using feature lines in Civil 3D. Just remember that if it's on top, it's going to be elevated. If I had feature lines, it would basically push this down to 0 because this would be at no elevation. Or elevation. All right, so I have a couple side lots here. Let's look at side lot C. Is there these purple guys here, and we'll look at what the grading family looks like. So create new ones, and we'll kind of modify them when we need. But what we can do is look at this existing lot C, and it's pretty straightforward. So when you look at an AutoGrader, basically we have this visual representation of our family. The parent, and we have a child here. So the parent is basically the feature line that we're using to control the beginning of our lot. So at this feature line, we have one selected object, and basically that selected object is our right-of-way line. We can go and we can set filters to these, and we can select different filters if you have good CAD management, and you can set a layer, and it'll grab all the right-of-way lines. I broke up my right-of-way just so when we run this, it doesn't take too long, but you can use filters to grab all the right-of-ways, and it'll run this family on that. And more importantly, it's the control point. So this parent point is going to be the point of the right-of-way. So at a slope and distance is my method. So the slope and distance method is saying that I'm going at a certain distance at a certain slope. And what I chose here is 120 feet at 1% slope. And that's basically from my right-of-way, it's going to adjust the feature line at 1% along the lot line. What it does is it gives me a readout of the objects that are still select, and change the select from drawing, and we'll select our feature line here. And so I have one feature line selected. It's this guy here. I'm going to focus on these 7 lots, and you can see I have 7 selected here. And the reason why I have 7 selected is because this feature line, I'm identifying which objects I want by filter. So this filter it's basically grabbing these feature lines by layer. It's on lot C, and I'm telling it to grab the feature lines within this that are on that layer and use that to apply my window. With that, you can do filters, or you can select different objects, and it gives you a little readout here. For settings, we have that we're going to go along the child, which means that we're going to set the elevations along the feature line here. And then under format, we can tell it what we're using as far as styles, layers, and what size. Layer called the side lot style, and the side lot style is on 0. So when it applies it to this layer, it turns purple here, and it's on site 1. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cancel this, and let's go back in here and see if we still have that selected. Yeah. And then what's it to do? I'm going to grab these purple lines here, and it's going to, these contours, basically what it's going to do is going to apply a 1% slope along those lot lines. So let's go ahead and add that in there. And then I'll go ahead and close. And so it's applied that 1%. Going back here, we can see it in our contours. And what we'll do is we'll look at these other guys as well. So basically, one of these are sloping towards the road, and one is sloping away from the road. So the A lot is sloping from the right of way back, and the blue lot is sloping from the right of way, sloping from the back part towards the roadway. And so we can look at that as well. We'll go back into our auto grader. We'll look at this other grading family, which is going to be side lot A. We'll go ahead and go through here and edit it and look at its components. And basically what this is doing is sloping at 1% the opposite direction. So here's a family, it's sloping at 1%, negative 1% for 125 feet. That's going down. Again, the same feature line that's selected is this right away here. And my formatting is basically the, using side lot style and my layer and applying that to my site here and applying it to the surface as well. The filter is basically grabbing that layer, and I have 17 objects here. So it's going to go down and do, I think up to this point, I think I broke it right there, but I can continue around, but it just takes a little bit longer. So we're going to go ahead and apply this guy and run this guy as well. So let me go and look at, we talked about our different methods. What we can do is we can create different families here, and we can connect them to each other. So if I wanted this to go down at a certain percent or up at a certain percent and then flatten out and go back down, what we could do is link them together by clicking the add button here. We can add different components, and it basically will link these components together. So I have a new child. We can go through and change the different slopes and distances to build this as we want. This is basically a basic representation, and we'll go through that in just a bit, but let's go ahead and apply this style so we can kind of move forward here. Cancel that, and then I'll go ahead and apply this, and we'll run side lot C, and that'll go through and fix our lots here. All right, so we do have a little bit of issue here. Let's look at our elevations and our slopes here through our elevation editor. 7.5. All right, let's look at side lots. Yeah, I think I might have used the wrong one. We'll just continue on here. All right, so how the side lots work is basically through AutoGrader, it knows what these feature line groups are. So if we go to our surface and we check out our surface, Um, we can change these slopes at any time. And if we look at our surface definition, we'll see that we have the lots that are defined in our surface, and they apply it to the definition. So basically, there are different groups of feature lines that get applied to our surface. So how AutoGrader knows and how it creates that dynamic link is it creates these groups, and it knows which objects that it created and how they apply to our surface. So let's look at some pad grading. We kind of drew up one pad before and applied it, and we're going to look at our basic templates. We can apply these templates along our right of way to place our pads down, and basically these templates have different slopes on them. We have 3 different templates: sloping forward, sloping back, and then one that's kind of crowned in the middle, sloping. The high point would be in the middle here. And basically all these are just feature lines. We can develop different feature lines for our objects here, and it's just a pretty simple approach, just grading a feature line by object, and we can apply that to our grading family. So what we can do is just go to our feature line. I'll just create another pad, and we'll just do it at like a 4% slope going up. And I'm just going to call this guy, we'll call it lot D just for now. And use basic feature line. That layer is good, and we'll just go, and I'm going to go from this center point here, and we're going to go at 0 elevation for now, and we'll look at how these are affected here when we apply them. Basically, it's relative to the surface, and if we have an elevation that is above the beginning of our lot, then the slope is going to change when we do our offset for that. So let's just look at this through our quick editor. We have 0 and 0 and 0. So let's go ahead and make this slope should be 0, and we'll make it slope at 3% up, and then this one will slope at 3% up. So now we have 1.5 feet on the back and 0 on the front. So pretty straightforward. Basically, it's just a feature line of a box, and we're going to use this as our template. First, we're going to start by applying our templates along this guy here, and what we're going to use is in AutoGrader, we're going to create a family or look at our existing family for that site pad. So we have lot A, and then we have lot C. We can create lot C. So let's go ahead and look at our pad A for our template insertion and see how that is set up. All right, so for template insertion, basically we do the same thing as we did for the side lots. We have a feature line. It's our right of way that's selected. We have a grading family that's pad A, and we identify the object. So with pad A, we can select on pad A and select our objects. We want to apply this guy right here. So we're going to go through and select the object. We're going to select a base point for that object as well. So when we draw these objects, we want to make sure we identify the front and the back part of the lot. And so we're going to click on our base point, and our base point is going to be the midpoint of our pad here. We can look at a different approach where we're using the high side of the pad. The rotation is basically at 0. It's perpendicular already. Previous versions of AutoGrader basically had rotating at 90 degrees. Right now, we're just going at 0. Our right of way is down here, and we're going to slope at a slope and a distance. It's on the right side. So the right side means that we need to know our direction of our control line, our parent feature line. And so my parent feature line is going from east to west and then back around. And so my side is going to be the right side to place the pads. I have a setback of 30 feet, so it's going to set back my my pad 30 feet from the right of way, and it's going to go and set it at a 1% slope up. And so my feature line, so when I'm using the feature line, I'm going to run this first one between midpoints. There's another option if you're looking at grading the high side and using the high side as a control for your pad elevation. You probably want to use feature line intersection, and we're going to go through that approach as well. We'll create another family and push that. Right now we're just going to use the midpoint of the feature line to determine what elevation and how to go 1% up. So it's going to find the midpoint of these two lot lines, and it's going to go at 1% up for 30 feet back. Right now, I'm using a filter that's saying that I want to grab the lots on A. So it's going to do these blue lots here, and lot A, and these are lot A as well. And what it does is it reports that there's 17 of them. And the reason why there's 17 is because I'm only going down to this point right here. So I'm going to go ahead and generate some lots through some pads through here, and it's going to stop at this point, and it reports how many objects there are. We can look at our formatting as well, and our formatting is how we can apply different styles to our pads. Right now, I'm just going to use basic feature line styles. I'm just going to put it on a layer called pad type, and it's going to go on my site one, and that should just be fine. And let's go ahead and apply this and run this pad. All right. All right, so we can do some checks on this. So what it's done is it's used my lot A template. It's used the right of way as control for the elevations, and it's finding the center point of the right of way and going 1% up on this control. So what we can do is we'll add some elevations and slopes to this. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a spot elevation and some slopes. So let's go ahead and add elevation here, and elevation here, and elevation here. And then we'll add a slope %. And we'll go from our midpoint to perpendicular to here. Okay, so our pad is actually relative to the elevations, and even though we're designating this as a 4% or 1% slope, it's calculating out as a 4% slope. And the reason that is because when we look at our actual pad, this elevation where it's at the front of the lot is actually at a different elevation. It's actually lower or higher because it's sloping up. So this is at 0 and this is at 0.9. And so what it's doing is actually this front line is relative to the elevation. So if it's higher than our control line or our parent feature line, then we're going to get different slopes here. So what we can do is take this guy and just lower it by point. Let me go ahead and place a label on it, and we can see what these elevations are. So we're at 0.9 here and 0 here. So if I take this and lower it at 0.9, so my front is actually at 0, and then we'll rerun it and look at what these numbers are. So I'm going to go ahead and negative 0.9 and drop that down. So now my elevation's at 0 here and at 0 here. And then we'll go ahead and rerun this grading family and see what happens with our slope. So pad A, and then we'll go ahead and rerun this guy, and it should fix our elevations here. So be mindful when you're creating the templates that the roadway side should be at 0 when you're sloping back. If it's not at the same elevation, if it's not at 0, then you're going to get some weirdness in your slopes from your right of way back to the back of the pad. All right. Let's go and look at some modify. Let's just go ahead and look at this and modify it. All right, again, these are basic feature line sets. If we look at the surface that we apply to, we should be able to see the definition. We have pad A's that we apply to our feature line set. Again, AutoGrader knows that that this group applies to it. So when you rerun these, basically what it does is it'll remove the group and then apply the new feature lines for each one of those, each one of the families that we run. So again, if we wanted to take our lot for our pads and adjust our slope, we could easily go through here and adjust it at a 2% slope, save this change, and then rerun the family. And what it'll do is it'll remove the family group and apply new data sets. So really the power of AutoGrader is its ability to adapt to any changes that are in your design. So if your offsets or your elevations change for your driveways or your approach to your pad, we have easy control over those. Going through each one manually and finding those elevations and then adjusting them, moving them up can be pretty time consuming and tedious. So really AutoGrader is, I think it's very dynamic in its ability to adapt to changes to your lots and your models. So let's look at another approach to our feature lines, our ability to place our template. We have I'm going to go ahead and take my feature line and I'm going to go ahead and place some lots along this edge here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this line and our feature line and just break a chunk out of it here and go to this endpoint here. And I'm just going to verify it didn't drop my elevation. All right. So one other way we can do is my road is sloping at 1% from the cul-de-sac here down. And I know that this is my high side. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to use another way to place our lots here using the high side. And we're going to use this lot A, but what we're going to do is we're going to just give it a new base point. What it's going to do is we're going to apply a stationing for this. I'm going to put an offset of just 6 feet just to center my lot. So what this means is that this is going to be my base point of my template when it places it, which means it's going to use this range for each one of these intersections to place the template. And we're just going to go and I'm going to place it around this corner as well. And we'll go ahead and end it somewhere. We'll end it over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I can break it, but let's just see if we can use a range as well. So with that, let's go ahead and create a new grading family and apply this template. So I'm going to take pad A and I'm just going to copy it. And all these grading families can be exported and saved. So you can bring them, if you have standard ones that you've created and you use them for different sites, you can import them back into other drawings as well. So you can export them and import them and save them into a library. I'm going to take this guy and we're going to edit it. I just copied the pad A and we're going to take a different approach to this. So I'm just going to call this pad A1. We're going to use a new feature line. So I'm going to clear this feature line out and we're going to select from drawing. And this time we're going to select this feature line along our roadway. I'm going to use pad A. I'm going to go ahead and click on the object again and click here. And this time for our base point, I'm going to use this 6-foot offset for the offset. So it's centered in my centered in my lot here. And let's go ahead and look at the other placement type. So if we go to the feature line intersection, right now it's using the midpoint between the two feature lines, which it was basically getting the elevation based on this point here. So what we're going to use is this feature line intersection. So we're going to go ahead and put on feature line intersection, and we're going to specify a station range for that. So my lots are about 42 foot wide. So what I'm going to do is click on the stationing, and I'm going to identify the lot width with about 42, and then we're going to hit this little plus sign, and it's going to go and place the lots. It gives us a range of what we're going to use. I'm going to actually, we'll just apply it for this whole thing. So basically what it's saying is I'm using my feature line stationing to develop my pads, and what it's going to do is every 42 feet, it's going to drop in a pad, and it's going to use that 6 foot offset that I identified as my base point for my object. So let me go and hit OK on this, and then we'll go ahead and let's look at this again. All right, let's see. Okay, and then we'll save and close. And then let's go ahead and run this guy here and see what happens. It's probably going to go around my whole site because I didn't break my line. That should be fine. We go and close that, and it's gone through and wrapped around the whole site here. But again, the 42 foot for my distance here for these lots matched pretty good, but it did do some weird stuff here. And all these are just basically feature lines that we could remove. I'll probably want to just break it here just to apply these. But I wanted to look at the offsets for some of these. These are kind of not what I expected to get. It was actually finding too many of those feature lines. And so we can tell that around these curves that we have this 6 foot offset that it's applying to the location. And then basically these are all, when we place it by a intersection, it's basically taking the offset and aligning the pad to the lot line here. So go ahead and undo this. All right. Go ahead and replace this. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this family again. And we're going to edit. And go ahead and do pad 1. I'll go and clear this out, and we'll select this guy again here. We'll go with our feature line at beginning. Use it to include the layer, our lot A, and then our stationing. Yeah, sorry. I agree. I'm not very, yeah. 42 foot, add it, and we'll save and close, and then we'll run this as well. And obviously I have my offset wrong because I did not set my offset. So yeah, I apologize. I can imagine it's pretty painful. This webinar was a hand-me-down from another person that do this a lot better than I did, and so I apologize. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I am going to wrap this up. So all right, so in conclusion, AutoGrader for residential lot grading, the perpendicular and template placement for the pads in an efficient way. The most I think the ability to adapt to changes in your model, whether it's elevation of your pads or slope of your lots. I think that's the key to AutoGrader, is just this dynamic ability to replace different feature lines along the right of way for the lot grading. Things to be mindful of is the feature line style hierarchy when you're creating lots, making sure that your hierarchy set so the elevations that you intend to set for those side lots are actually set. The direction of your feature line and feature line direction when you're placing lots using the intersection, you need to know what direction your feature lines are and the stationing for those, and then the midpoint of the lot and high point of lot modifications or to those lot lines you can apply, and then the template insertion. So template insertion to place the pad. So that's it. Thank you very much for joining us. 2 links above, the ATG YouTube page and the CTC YouTube page. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Enjoy your day.